Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Place. Got a special roundtable for you with a bunch of super talented people. Let's call it the Hazelrigg Roundtable. At it is Mark Parfitt, recording engineer for Kehlani and Normani and Snoop, and Justin Bieber, a bunch of stuff. The Hazelrigg Brothers, Geoff and George Hazelrigg. Jon Castelli, mix engineer for Harry Styles and Khaled, and Mike Miller, an incredible Atmos mixer, also does Harry Styles, Lil Nas X, Jack Harlow. And we're going to talk about how to use this particular gear in a way that makes your life better. Hazelrigg stuff is all tube recordings made by musicians in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And you're going to hear users who use it, how you can use it, and how it can elevate your game. This is really good stuff. One more time, you're about to meet Mark Parfitt, the Hazelrigg Brothers, Geoff and George, Jon Castelli, and Mike Miller. Enjoy. The thing that ties everybody together here is they do things for musicians. They do things musically. The gear that they use are customized for musicians, the way musicians think. And so that seamless transition with the Hazelrigg gear to the way they use it is something that is musical more than it is technical. It is certainly technical, but the outcome is musical. Did I get that right, guys?
I like that a lot. I hope people can hear. I hope people can actually hear what that translates to in audio language. Yeah.
Well, Jon, take it from there. Actually, so when you look at Hazelrigg gear, when you think about the process that you apply things to, that this mixed philosophy, the other things you do, you have to have tools that articulate what's going on in your head and in your heart. Like Dave always says, it's one thing about being technically about sound, but you still got to find it in your gut, hear it in your head, and have some emotion. How does the Hazelrigg stuff work into what you do?
Man, I there's a couple of ways into this. I kind of try to change my philosophy every 6 months on what I think, but the one on the way, I guess I have a workflow, but with the Hazelrigg stuff and with tubes in general and even order harmonics, there's always something about kind of preservation of intention that comes to mind. I've become a pretty big wine geek, and I'm going to equate it to kind of preservation of terroir and grape in winemaking, where the best winemakers are kind of at the foundation of their formula and whatever they're trying to put into a bottle is what's the truth, what's the intention of the sound source, the performance, the performer, and tubes tend to enhance that. They tend to bring out and more embolden. Like I always think of the tube, you can see a transistor and you're trying to squeeze. This is a very technical thought. Trying to squeeze sound through this transistor, and there's like a transparency there, and it's nice, it's clean. But a tube gets brighter, and like you can see it get bigger and bigger and fatter and occupy more space of what it is. It's not interfering. I mean, obviously you can have a guitar amp and you can turn the gain up and distortion and crush the fuck out of something, but that's not what the Hazelrigg stuff does. The Hazelrigg is bringing to life a more bold version of what's there. So then you're mitigating the risk of interfering too far right from the beginning. I would say that's.
Mike, what was interesting about researching you was, and you tell me if I have this off, in learning to play piano and using the Suzuki method where you learn by ear, seems to me that in your work and using Hazelrigg stuff, and as you've come to where you've come, and even when you met Castelli and Spider and you adopted philosophies, it feels to me like your foundation is that you count on your ears and you count on your musicality. 100%. Am I close?
Oh yeah, couldn't be closer. That's literally it. Yeah, that is, and to go on what Jon was saying earlier too about the just like bringing the life out of things. It's what you want. It's what the intention is. Like why the producer or songwriter is putting something in that like is that you just bring it out and you bring the life into it. You bring it out forward. It's like, oh, here's me. Here is the sound, without having to do a trillion other things that couldn't even end up ending where that is.
And in Mark's work, like all your work, you just touched on something that I think is really true when I hear it as a listener. You guys use your musicality and the tools like from Geoff and George, and there's an efficiency to it. Like you're not all over the map.
So much faster,
right?
Yeah,
and you get to that musical truth quicker. Where I, as a listener, I might not know the specifics of it, but I can feel it and sort of groove with it because it's uncluttered.
Feeling is everything. Yeah. What you're saying is like the feeling is everything. When you bring the life out of something, you feel it more, and it comes forward more, and you can do things to make it even more exciting or whatever you want without it being harsh or annoying in other different ways. And then you just put it on, and then it just comes to life. And especially in Atmos too, like if something was mixed in stereo first, and you need to squeeze things in to fit in the stereo field, but in Atmos your painting is so much bigger, your canvas is so much bigger. So you start moving things out, you can like hear all the stuff that you've lost sometimes if we haven't done the stereo mixes. And like you can hear the things that have you can hear the things that were like that were squeezed to fit into something, and then when you take it out and you're like, wait, I don't want this acoustic guitar to sound tiny, I want it to sound huge. So then you put the stuff back on, and it brings the light back out of it, brings it back into the room, and it's easy. It's like just actually easy.
And Mark, because I want to get your contributions too, but what you just touched on, Mike, to me is the difference between when something goes through you versus Apple's algorithm. Apple's algorithm doesn't make it sound good. Somebody who understands Apple's and so forth does make it good. So Mark Parfitt, you're sitting there, you're on the road, a bunch of you guys do stuff on the road with these kinds of tools. And you being on it, does it make your job easier? Which I'm sure it does, but does it allow you to be creative? Because I think you guys play these instruments, you don't really use them.
100%. The gear almost becomes an extension of the engineer, and it has to be to a point where I don't want to look at anything. I just want to turn knobs and keep my eyes on the artist or keep my eyes on the screen. This gear, it's just so intuitive, and I bring like this little 4U rack with me literally to every session, because I then have like the confidence to know that when I'm in any of these studios, I have something that's going to sound great on no matter anything I put it on. Guitar, bass, vocals, it's just so easy and flexible, and it keeps a lot of the guesswork out. And especially because I go to like these, even when you go to nice studios, they'll have all the gear in the world, but you can't trust that any of the stuff even works, or I don't even want to, I don't want to think about any troubleshooting. I just want to get directly to the point. And this box helps me, both of them, like, especially with the VLC. I'm recording producers that are playing bass 1 second, then hopping on guitar. And then we have somebody on an SM7 mic that wants to just spit out a melody. Oh, and then somebody wants to hop on a mic. So then with this box, I'm like literally just flipping it over here, and I don't even have to leave my chair at all, so it just becomes something that's so easy for the workflow, and the fact that it just sounds phenomenal just makes it that much better.
Jon Castelli has 12 of these things. Is there anybody here that has more than 12? Raise your hand.
We're coming for him though.
We don't have any.
I'm telling you, Geoff George, good grief, man. Well, like when you look at their gear, all of them have multiple like versions, because I'm guessing that the quality is what's making you want to get another one, Cool stuff.
Yeah, I'll touch on that for a second, because I have serial numbers 3 through 14 from them. I mean, George and Geoff and I go way back. So, I mean, this is maybe 6 years ago. I had moved into this loft that I'm in now, and I was producing actually more than mixing. That's Tony Maserati's fault. He was my mentor, and he told me to produce instead of mix.
Tony.
Tony literally said, like, don't fucking mix. What are you doing? And I was like, dude, I'm coming for you, man. I'm coming. I'm just kidding. Love Tony. But I was producing more. So I thought, well, in the 60s, engineers had their own console. They had a bunch of the same preamps and they were custom made. They were actual engineers. So they were building the tools that they need before the 60s too, but up into the 60s, before the big manufacturers were coming out with their large format consoles. I thought I'd build my own with these guys. So therefore, when you're tracking live, I use a lot of ribbon mics. You're getting this really pure, intentional sound right from the beginning. And then what that does, if you have good converters, is you're then able to manipulate that sound to a higher degree because it's captured properly. It's captured with less artifacts, less distortion. So then you can, I'm a modern music maker. I use plugins and I tear sounds apart. I rip them down. I rebuild them. And it takes the EQ and the processing better, the more fundamental, harmonics are captured. So I thought if I can do that with 12 all at the same time, I could have a sound. And then now that I'm only mixing, I tend to send a lot of the stems out to them all at the same time. And that just saves me time. I don't have to keep printing them back two at a time. Point being, I think the sound of the VLCs is almost non-existent, right? They take the sound source and show me its face a little more. And I have this kind of philosophy of that now that we're in a hybrid era of music making, we've all heard a guitar, we've all heard a piano. So how do we treat acoustic and natural sounding elements more synthetically in the box? And how do we take the less nostalgic, bright, modern synth sounds and treat them naturally and less synthetic and warm them up? So you can kind of do both with their EQ, with this over EQ process. How do we make these sounds either more larger than life if they've been acoustic, or if they're synthetic, how do we warm them up and make them more like tangible and less like, oh my God, there's just white noise above 15K. Like no synth had a high filter that was above 15K in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. No one did that.
Well, just really quickly, one is, because we got to see what the Hazelrigg boys think. One is we do a thing called Studio Tour. So at some point in time, we'll be reaching back to you guys. You take your own camera, give a tour of your own studio, and you send it to us and we blow it up. So I'm saying that early. That just made Talisha happy. Secondly, the gear sounds so good, and I'm not a mix engineer, so I have some of the gear I just put in the backseat of my car. It's not even plugged up.
I love that.
And my car sounds better. Like the music sounds better. It just rises, and I put it away in the trunk so it doesn't get broken into. Shit's hot.
Yeah,
just
nice.
so just have Hazelrigg gear around you. It's good. It's going to be better.
Yeah.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to make a quick comment on is I've had the luxury of working on both sides of, the recording music business and the audio business, the record business and the audio. Those are two different businesses. Some people like to put them in the same thing. They may be all part of the music business, but they're separate businesses. And I had a chance to work with the best and brightest on the music side. The audio side, the people are so fucking smart. It just warms my heart to sit and talk with people that are so fucking intelligent. So thank you for that. Now back to our regular scheduled programming. All right, Hazelrigg boys, you're sitting there, you're glowing. People are talking about your stuff. How does it make you feel? Does it inspire you for the future? Give us what you feel when you hear such incredible talent talk about your gear like that.
The thing is, we didn't design this stuff per se. We're kind of the same shoes as these other guys. We're in it for the sound. We've taken Doug Fern's designs, topology, and right, and applied. I mean, we're like stylists. We applied the thing in a way that works for us and that works for our friends here, and. At the end of the day, we're tracking, we're making records, we're trying to make better sounding stuff. That's the goal here.
Well, yeah, Doug's mission statement from the very beginning when he started the company 30 years ago was he wanted to help people make better records. And we are in a unique position to service the top people in this industry like these guys here and help elevate the industry. Our goal is, it's our privilege really to make the industry just sound better. And actually, I wanted to touch on one thing that you guys were talking about, and this is sort of differentiating between how things sound and how things feel, which is really interesting because this is what we think in terms of all the time. And I think a lot of engineers get stuck in, well, what's the sound like? But the people walking down the street, they don't know what things sound like, and they don't care. It's not their job. They care about how it makes them feel. And all three of these guys are masters at making things feel good.
Yeah,
well, I'm that guy. I'm the guy who sorry, Dave. I'm that guy who is not the expert in the space. So I'm reacting to how it feels. Look, I have a good ear and all that kind of stuff. And I've learned a lot from doing Pensado's place, but I still try to be the consumer, which is why sometimes, like, our good friend Josh Goodman, which a lot of people know, there are times I'll call Buffy at 2:00 in the morning and go, did Josh mix that? It just feels like Josh, because I can react to it as a consumer and not somebody who knows a lot. And I would slightly adjust your perspective in that, or add to your perspective in that you guys may be stylists, but don't underplay what you do and how that really makes this stuff really work, because you're doing it as musicians and you're doing it for the right purpose. And the goal is pure. You're not trying to make this technical monstrosity. You're trying to make the industry sound better. So you might not give yourself credit, but your black friend Herb will. So just
let's hear from Dave.
Oh yeah, I've always felt like the intangibles like flow and groove and feel and emotion are a function of the transients, and some compressors just gobble transients up and just you nothing. Like, go to your girlfriend and say, "What do you think about this kick drum sound?" She'll go, "What's a kick drum?" But she can tell you the groove, the feel, the emotion. And so my question is to all of you, how do you go about keeping those transients and adding to them and adding to that element that can give those feelings and of oh man, okay.
I mean, transients are everything, right? If you listen to unmolested mixes from the 60s on the phone, on an iPhone, that are without a doubt, my God, at least 10 dB quieter, right? Let's just talk numbers for a quick second. I hate numbers, but they're at least 10 dB lux quieter than what's happening right now on the radio. And they jump out of the phone louder than the, most recent Lil Nas X record that I might have mixed. So I'm not trying to say that, anything's better than the other thing. It's just that they had more transients. The tools that they were using were allowing them to follow through. And they were jumping out of the speakers. Even to today, I can feel it in my pocket. Say I'm walking around and doing dishes and I have a 60s psych record on or something. The drums are jumping out of the pocket. And then I put on a mix from 2010, let's say like Katy Perry, Teenage Dream, one of the best songs of all time in pop. The drums are not jumping out of the pocket. They're basically not even making my leg feel anything. It doesn't change the fact that that's a monumental record and there's energy in it, but the transients are not there. They're all gobbled up. So I think that we're in our group of friends that we talk to, Goodwin being a part of that. I can name drop everyone that's using Fern and VLCs that are my friends, like Kezio and Baines, and very successful mix engineers that are young, and we kind of have this vitality of how do we maintain low end, understand gain staging, try to rebuild the what it is meant to be an engineer and understand kind of limits of the technology and stuff. And transients are where it's all out for translation, because if you have transients, you can have less lufs and it still sound loud and have this apparent loudness that the algorithm likes. Because we obviously have to care about technology and how the DSPs are going to make our mixes sound later. But transients are everything. So how do we handle it? I handle it by saturation, and then I don't really use compressors very much. And if I do, it's super slow attack. So Oh, there's transient shapers now. There's the neutron thing. There's that spiff thing that people seem to like. There's a lot of versions of this. I think if you're using them in multiband, there's some phase relationship crossover point things that kind of get rid of the whole issue. So I wouldn't use them in that mode if people are listening to this for any sort of advice. But we have an opportunity to compress or saturate and then rebuild transients with these new tools that are of the modern era. I think that they're everything. I think transients make everybody move.
But that transient discussion seems to be a really important thing for feel and process and the other kinds of stuff. And also just the sophistication and understanding what to do with it or whether it's gobbled up or so on and so forth. So Mark, do you see that in your work? That's something you pay attention to or you don't need to?
Oh, no, 100. I mean, transients are everything. And that's what's going to give us the punch and the feel. And it's interesting, even though like the VNE is a compressor, you can still, when you dial back the attack and make it really slow, you can almost kind of pull out and shape the transient a lot and give it a little bit of punch. And because like it's a fixed ratio and it's like 3-to-1. So, you know, you're not really going to be over compressing. And it's really hard to, you know, be disrespectful with it unless you just drive the input like crazy and then you can squash it. But usually with that, I can still maintain transients, but shape it with the attack and release nicely.
So Dave, here's the good news. We decided not to do Batter's Box with you guys because I just didn't want to see Dave pummeled. You guys would just beat the shit out of him. He's never had a 3-way ass kicking. And it would have been 5-way actually. And if I jumped on, it'd be 6-way, and then it'd be a diversity issue as well too. But that's a whole other thing.
I want to come back on just for Batter's Box then, because damn.
Well, don't bring your transient.
We'll make that. So here's the other thing that I think is interesting about where the 3 of you sit, and really the 5 of you. When you're working on really hot stuff, and your phone is ringing, and the challenge is how to be better, and in your particular case, you're an Atmos expert, and you're dealing with spatial audio and Apple and all these things that are coming at us, right? And it gives you a perspective of the industry that not everybody gets to do. Like a lot of people want to be you guys, even guys who are already hot. They're like, oh, how did he get that foothold? When you think about what you're sitting and looking at and the tools that are available, are you optimistic? Is it exciting about where we're going? Because I think we're in a constant technological evolution. Like something happens every week or every month or something. Give me your guys' perspective about where it's going, what our audience should be excited about.
I'm a little bit pessimistic on both. I said on both sides. I'm pessimistic because there are just so many tools, so you can spend more time in your mix fucking around with things and actually making a good decision. So I actually like to, I think Brian Eno talked about for every album that he works on, every project, he sets up 5 or 6 sound stations, and he only makes the album based on those sound stations. They don't really change very much. That could be a Rhodes or a Whirly with a pedal board set up, a certain drum kit, certain piano, whatever. I only have about 10 plugins that I use, and I'll cycle through them. They'll change, but I'll replace one with the other. And I don't want to be thinking about what I'm going to do with a certain plugin. I want to think about what the sound needs, what the sound source needs, what the whole thing needs to feel right. I don't want to think about what I'm going to use to get it there. So I always talk about Tony, and I would say that, put Tony in a room with the BF76 and an EQ3 built into Pro Tools, and he'll make a mix sound better than, 98%. I don't know if I can confidently say that about myself, but I would put myself up against that challenge to do that just based on what a song and a sound source needs. So I think we should minimize the tools that we have access to. That's my pessimism of the fact that things are changing so rapidly that people like the new, and haven't understood the old yet. I'll stop there. I can go for hours.
I totally see what you're saying, John. And when you're talking about that perspective, I definitely agree. And obviously, you taught me, so we have the same philosophy. Just like, how can we get to where we need to be the easiest, fastest, straightest line? And that's one of the big reasons why we use the Hazelrigg stuff too. But as far as like talking about technology and the future of music and not just mixing, I think the future is extremely bright and exciting. I think we're in a really exciting time with spatial audio. I know it's easy for me to say because I'm all in on it, but I really do believe that this is the future of music. I think that there was a lot of hurdles in the beginning, and there's going to still be hurdles because it's a new format, new technology, but we keep figuring them out, and it just keeps getting better and better. And immersive just amplifies the point of music is to connect emotionally. And if you're listening to speakers, you can connect emotionally to a song, especially, if it's mixed well and it's done really well, but it doesn't even come close if you're inside of the song and immersed by the song. The entire point of music becomes amplified. So to me, it just means that is clearly the next step forward. It's going to be in all the cars, the headphones, and spatial audio on Apple Music sounds incredible now. We've figured that out. And it just becomes it's just the next step, the next evolution, in my opinion, for music. And who knows where it goes from there. But I also know that this is literally just the beginning. And that's exciting for me.
Is that your take as well, Mark?
Oh, definitely. But I also, some of the tech stuff, and so much stuff is coming out all the time. I'm a little exhausted by it, and I can't, I've just find the tools that really work for me. And I kind of find myself more going back towards like just outboard and hardware versus paying attention to all the new tech and plugins and anything that are coming out. Cause I just feel like I'm getting a quicker result with the outboard that's just simple, and I don't have to update my plugins or update it just keeps things straight, to the point. So I
would offer up this just really quickly, that in my particular chair, which sometimes is different from Dave, so I'll get calls or people want advice on other kinds of things, not necessarily technological things. Sometimes it's career stuff. Sometimes it's, the state of the business, whatever the case may be. And what I think, to all your points, is going on is part of the technological evolution is that people are learning to edit. Don't let the technology use the technology. Don't let the technology use you. You don't need 600 plugins. You might need 5. And part of what's happening with the onslaught is people are going, whoa, I can get to my shit with just this over here. And I think that's an advancement.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When people get back control, so that the control is now the tools and the music being the point, and not being super plug-in dude or super plug-in chick. And I know everything, and I've got everything, and I used it all on this record, and the record sounds like a piece of garbage because you used everything.
Well, it took me 10 years to buy Altiverb. 10 years to be convinced to buy Altiverb.
I still haven't bought it. I'm never going to do it.
It's really good. It's a good reverb.
It is good, but $700.
I bet Dave has used Altiverb for a long time.
No, not for a long time. I was late. I bought it. I bought it within the last 5 years, probably. Yeah.
There we go.
In the last 5 years?
4X that we use.
I bought it 4 weeks ago. Yeah.
I got a question. Going back, how does Atmos affect the process of what you're from what you're if you're given this, like let's say for example transients, does Atmos color those in a way that's good or bad, or how's that work?
There's a lot of things. Yes, so number one, it depends on if I'm mixing the stereo or if someone else mixed the stereo. Number two, I say that I mix spatial audio. I do mix Dolby Atmos, but it's for spatial audio. And Apple has its algorithm that does things to the objects, to the tracks based on their location. And early on, it was I felt like it was my duty. Like I had to figure out what that was and what was happening. And so, yes, mixing it in Atmos for spatial audio or just mixing in Atmos, there's a lot to be conscious and aware of when it comes to transients based on placements, what the stereo mix sounded like and who did it. Because there's also a huge problem that a lot of mixers have when they're trying to mix Atmos is like we're kind of in an era where there's like a lot of mixed bus mixers where we're just throwing everything into a mix bus, and then we're like hoping that like just slamming that is going to make shit sound fire, and like and it just, and then when you take it off, it just unloads into like nothingness, and you just see all these issues. So a lot of people that can have success like that when they go into an Atmos environment where there is no mix bus, then it becomes extremely confusing and anxiety producing for them.
Be nice, Mike. Be nice now.
Sorry.
This can go a couple of ways.
I'm not saying any names.
We're on camera.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we all strive for here is to connect people with the music, and that's that mostly a function of the intangibles here again. And I've got some techniques that I try to use. Can you guys share some of your techniques on how to get that moment, that moment that just the person goes, oh my gosh, this is my song. This is my song.
Dynamics.
Dynamics. Who said that?
Yeah. I said that because that's one of the huge benefits of Atmos, is because there isn't the loudness wars. Like you cannot go above -18 LUFS integrated. So you have so much more headroom where you can have so much more low end. You can have so many more transients. You can have so much, like just the dynamics of the song. It can get loud. It can get really loud and crazy big, and then it can get really quiet. And you're rewarded for that. Where in stereo, it's very difficult to create those type of moments. So
every 4 bars,
a huge benefit.
Every 4 bars, I put something in the mix 4 to 6 dB louder.
Sweet.
And my mastering engineer, the mastering engineer, sometimes call back and go, "That's a little loud." I'm like, "Thank you."
Yeah. No, that's like that's the Bruce Swedian magic. There's always something really loud. It's like, oh, attention drawn. That's sick energy.
Yep.
Like that's not happening. Everything's so tight and like, oh, it's in its place.
I got it from Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Right.
So loud. I had to stop and pull off the side of the road and go back to the car. Man, Trevor Horn's my hero. Trevor Horn is my hero.
I really like that a lot. That it sounds wrong, to a lot of people. Everyone's so wound tight in like micro editville, everything's like so precise and like 4 bars, and it's like so tight.
Actually, there are a bunch of hits in that song that are just not in the pocket at all.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
They jump out. They're like way above the bar line, and it just grabs you. And I think people are scared to do that stuff now.
Well, the human brain is designed to hear the difference, so it's designed to hear the mistakes more so than after 4 bars, your brain just shuts off and says, "Okay, nothing here." But if you sorry.
No, I was going to say, and to add to it, with all the breakdowns and discussions and hits that shouldn't be there, the shit is just funky.
That's what it is. No, it's funky. Exactly.
Shit is just funky. I'm gonna go put that shit on the car when this is over and play it loud, because it just feels good. Like, it doesn't have to feel correct. It just feels good, and I think
never about being correct.
Right. And that's what I love about the way you guys play the gear, and then your own particular track records. And then when you hook up, when I hear the results of that, it just fucking feels good. Like, not specific, just that shit's banging. So when I start using all those kind of epithets and all that kind of shit, then that your mix is absolutely smoking. And I think that's really the goal. We can over intellectualize stuff. The process may be intellectual to get there. The result, I need to feel in my gut and in my head and make when we do live events, of which, by the way, you guys are going to be invited to something in a second. Cool. If you ever come to one of our live events, particularly at NAMM, I demand that the people move for the first 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. What the fuck are you sitting down? You made the music. You're not going to get together and we're going to sit and intellectualize about the music. Get your ass up, shake your ass. You made the music. You make some money from this music and enjoy why the fuck we do this. Like, it's a demand. And it's what's interesting is when you unleash them, they go fucking nuts. Like, oh my God, I have permission to be physical. So, you know, I still think that we have to remember the joy of why we're doing this, the opportunity. I think it's the chance when you've been given a chance to be a steward of pop culture, that's a huge responsibility, and you can't lose the fun of it and the goal of it in the process. You know, like somebody saying, I trust your taste. I'm going to make a purchase based on what you do. I'm going to maybe not have the meal I was going to have so my kid can have a record. Who knows what it is? But so for some people, it's that serious. We're blessed that we don't have to make those kind of decisions, but other people don't. And music is so seminal, let alone it brings people together. One of the few things in this world that brings people together. So, all right, I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but I do think it's important to be reminded of that stuff.
Just somebody describe the first 10 minutes of when you sit down to mix. What do you do in the first 10 minutes?
Overall balances, general balances, first 10 minutes off jump.
Put all the VLCs on.
First 10 minutes, listening and understanding. See if I can make it through the song without moving a plug-in. You know, can I get down what distracts me from the listening experience? Understanding distractions, I would say, is my first 10 minutes.
We just give up and call one of these guys.
Exactly. For me, I have the way I do it, which is probably wrong, but I don't let myself do anything but use the fader for volume. I can't touch anything but volume, and then in about an hour, I have a mix based on just volume, and that allows me to not have to do so much work, because sometimes when you start with the drums, which I've been doing most of my career, when you start with the drums, you have to kind of go back and start from scratch anyway, because you forgot how to get a trough for the vocal. So
yeah, very very true.
Particularly when you didn't like the singer.
Tony used to say, I would be mixing. He'd be on the couch and he'd be like, "Yo, you have the vocal out for too long. Put the vocal in." He would always like, "Why are you mixing without the vocal in? What are you doing?" He would scold me. So I actually very rarely mute the vocal because of him yelling at me from the couch. Like, "Why is the vocal not in? It's been 10 minutes. What are you doing?" So I don't, those troughs are actually really, that's a real thing, man. That's I feel like I would lose in batter's box to you today because I haven't moved a fader in 10 years. I mix with faders at 0 and I automate plugins for output because I think Pro Tools, if you're mixing in the box, sounds better at 0. So I haven't moved a fader in way too long. So I would lose.
Same flow too.
But I do automations with it in a different way, but the fader stays. So I think there's I think there's something to it, but also every time I hear someone like you say that the fader thing, there's something magical to having the taste and the confidence to set balances where you truly believe that they should be. And a lot of mixing these days is leaving the producer's balances. Yep. And it feels different. As a mixer, I come from the era pre Tony too, that I've mixed on a console. I've mixed the tape. I'm just old enough where I've done both, and I have done full console mixing in studio. And the times in the last 15 years, you know, since I started, it's a big difference in balances. Producers want their balances the same, so they might hear the loud thing and be like, "Oh, that's tight," but put it back down just because it was like that to begin with. It's almost like they're adverse to change, even though they inherently know it's better and more exciting. Well, that's not how I had it, so let's put it back. It's like, oh, they didn't make the decision, so therefore they don't like it anymore. And that's maybe 70-30 in my world in favor of them wanting how they had it. And then 30% of the time, oh shit, that's crazy. Wow, you turn that up.
Yeah. My thing is, if I like it, turn it up. If I don't like it, turn it down. That's the way I work.
Well, you've had a good track record doing this, Dave.
Yeah. No, I love to have a word in a song that has a lot of something in it, and just crank it up 3 dB. You know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do that and pan it too, and just to make sure they hear it.
I'm going to do that today for your sake.
Okay.
Yeah.
and then also move a fader. Just move it and put it back.
I'll move a fader.
Yeah.
So Geoff and George, as you sit here, you got. I just see those devious minds working. Are you guys preparing gear for the future that's going to, deal with where we're going? And are you inspired? Should we stay tuned? Is it going to be exciting? Give us a snapshot.
We're looking at a total paradigm shift, man.
Oh, I love it.
Stay tuned.
Oh, I love it. Please let us know early and let us get behind it. Because here's the good news about what you guys have done, even as stylists, on what Doug has done. The shit is just hot as fire. People swear by it. Our friends at Sweetwater, I had to have them stop talking to me about you guys. We met Mark there, and just what people say about the gear and how they use it, and the quality of the people that use it. Everybody that Jon and Mike and Mark, they're all friends of ours, and they just dig it, man. Kudos and hats off to you, because I think the other thing that's really cool about this space is people don't do it just to make you feel good, because it makes their shit sound bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're using it because that shit works, and it's really incredible, and that's the best testament that we could do. Now, before we close, we're going to do a little actuarial table thing. I'm going to scare everybody, because I think, Jon, you said you go back with the guys, and I think you had number 3 or something from the beginning.
3 through 14, yeah.
So when Dave and I met John McBride, he has a microphone collection, and his mics went back so far that they had Nazi symbols on them.
Absolutely.
I was like, Jon, this is the first time I'm meeting you, and I'm the only black guy here, and this is a swastika. And what should I draw from this corollary? Because it's a little scary. And when it said 0001, that was like BC. Like, it was way
BC. Before condensers.
Good one.
Good engineer joke, Jon.
Yeah, that's very good. Look, Dave and I are blessed that we even have friends like this.
Absolutely.
The level of what you do musically is one thing. Who you are as humans is probably the more important thing. The fact that you care and make the industry better and keep pushing the envelope, and tools that you guys make at Hazelrigg, or Style, Eric Larson, all those folks. We really believe that our part of the responsibility is to make our community stronger and stronger. Sometimes we take hits to do it. Sometimes we do deals that aren't about money, and I think ultimately the reason that Pensado's Place has maintained, we're 13 years, 584 episodes, 200 countries, 8 million people a year. I'm still flabbergasted with that shit.
It's crazy.
It is absolutely crazy. But what's crazy is it's because of you guys. Because they can come see you guys talking about this stuff here. Dave and I have our, Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon thing, however way we do that. So we have that part, and I'm mindful of that. But they get to meet you guys, and they get to hear you be human and not just talk about gear. And that's why we want it always to be more than just the plug-in, who you are as people, how you were shaped. Mike, the fact that your parents said, okay, let's take your tuition and build a studio.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that is a game changer.
It changed everything.
Game changer. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
So we just want to thank you for coming on our show, for supporting our show. We got some shit for you coming up. NAMM is in April. We'll talk to you about that off camera because there's some really good opportunities for you. Hazelrigg boys, we're yours. Hit us up. Let's do more. Let's do more, man. We are huge fans. Good going on, Eric. We love Eric. Eric has his own unique way, and now the motherfuckers added his ZZ Top beard.
Great beard.
Great beard. Classic. Classic hair.
Fantastic.
Classic rock and roll hair, particularly up in Sacramento. There's usually not cool shit up in Sacramento. So he got his own, he's like a superstar. So, DP, this is your community, man. This is our community. They're fabulous, aren't they?
Yeah. I wanted to say something. I don't want to say who, but somebody on the panel is working with Sweetwater on putting together a mix, but from scratch. And I think that's going to change everything. When you start mixing each individual project yourself as a producer and an engineer, we're going to get a lot more energy into the process. And
Amen.
I'm looking forward to that. Right?
Yes.
The fun part about what we do is when it's just a good conversation, the time flies. Like this has been the fastest hour, which never would have thought of. But we are just again humbled that you would join us. Just amazed to be able to say you're friends. Amazed by your talent and skill. We are here for you. Please use the show as much as you need to for your projects. All you have to do is call and you're on. You got me, you got Talisha, whatever it is. It's really interesting. Mike, tell Carrie over at Apple we said hello.
Will do.
Absolutely. I like him a lot. And when he made the switch over, I understood completely. We have some other friends over there.
He's a good dude.
And then off camera, we'll have a bunch of conversations. Audience, if you ever wanted some instruction, here's instruction on tools you can use, but also how to be cool people and how to be contributors and how to realize that it's about what's in your heart and your head and not just what you can be intellectual about. You see three from the best who are hot as fire. When I'm talking about hot, I'm talking about the fire department's right outside my place right now with a hose just ready. I'm just holding them up. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, we'll see everybody next week.
Yes.